Hello and welcome to Film Ireland Presents. I'm Associate Editor Gemma Creagh, and today we'll be chatting with filmmaker Colin Hickey about his film Perennial Light, which hits selected cinemas on the 29th of November. So first I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how you got into film. Where did your passion start?
So I think really as a kid, my uncles were big into movies, and they used to have they used to have at their homes and stuff, they had just loads of tapes, BMX tapes and stuff like that. So when I used to visit them, I used to watch a lot of films. My old man was into movies, used to take me to the cinema. And I was fairly young. Like my first memory actually is in Cork, one of the Cork cinemas. I went to see a film called Inner Space. I don't know if you ever remember it, with Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid. And I was 87, I think. And I think after that, I was just hooked. From there on then it was just cartoons, movies. And I don't think I was just there and then I wanted to make films. So as far back as that, I was saying to people that I'm going to get into films and make movies.
And did you do it in college or?
Yeah, so I did a year in St. John's. It was a 3-year course, but I didn't finish it. I probably should have finished it. And then I went out to London. I did a year in London at the London Film Academy. The reason I went there was because I did St. John's course was 3 or 4 years, and I just thought I needed something at that particular time that was a bit more intensive. This was a course that, in 9 months you did 8 short films.
Wow.
And this is before digital, so you were shooting on film as well.
Presume you don't direct that many films, or you're attached in different roles.
The great thing about the course there was that you got, it was quite intense. You got to see how other people worked on a set. So I think I put my name forward for directing. I didn't get it directing or writing or cinematography, which I ended up doing, or editing. I did all the other smaller jobs, but I think I was a little insecure at the time, but I got to see how it worked and how other people worked and the difficulties and all the complications of the preparation. I think I produced one of the films, actually, one of the first films we did, a 5-minute film. So it was a real learning curve and all that with that. And then afterwards, I came back after that, I didn't really go into the film business. I sort of just floated around for a few years. I wasn't in the best place personally. And I was maybe a little bit immature and not ready for the film business. I could see from just the difficulties from the courses, how difficult it was to make films and the drama and the ego and all that. And I wasn't ready for that, I don't think. But I made a couple of low budget short films. And then from there, I went out to South America. My son was born out there. And when I was out there then in Colombia, I made a short film. And while my other half was just giving birth, I went back to work actually. And my son's granny looked after him. I went out making a film over maybe 9 or 10 months with some of my friends there. And it was a low budget film. We shot it in Spanish. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. And that too was a real learning curve in that it was a 30-page script we wrote, myself and Paolo Chianti, who actually is the animator on Perennial Light. We wrote a 30-page script and we started shooting it again with just friends of mine and stuff. And as I was filming it, we filmed in rural Colombia. So the film was about this guy. He lives with his mother and his son. Doesn't have a good relationship with his son, and he abandons him and wanders off into a jungle and sort of goes on a journey of self-discovery. And so as we were filming it out in the middle of nowhere in the jungles and forestry of Colombia, I started doing 2 different versions. I would shoot the scene with dialogue and shoot the scene without dialogue. And I did this because, all these locations and these places were new to me. They were different. I wasn't used to seeing some of these places. And they were so visual that I thought, you know what, now I can, instead of, having Anne say to Barry, I love you, I could take out the dialogue and I could suggest it visually as opposed to saying with dialogue. Now, what that meant as well was that I'd have to literally change the location in some cases because you had to stylize the imagery, you had to light it a certain way. And I work with natural light. So I usually had to reshoot the scene in a different location. But again, I learned a lot from that, and I think it followed into my later work and how I make films. So I spent a year doing that, and then another 6 months or so editing, and then from there we moved back to Ireland. I set up a business doing wedding videos, moved to West Cork, There was an opportunity to live down here for 6 months. I took that, and then that went on for another 6 months. And now I'm here 15 years.
That seems to be the story with West Cork, actually. It just kind of keeps
Yeah,
people.
there's a load of filmmakers down here, like, yeah, and actors as well, known actors down here, not far from here actually. So yeah, I think it's just a nice place to live, I suppose. Load of blow-ins, easy, like good vibe here. Everyone's kind of cool, and good coffee shops, which is always a plus. So I got into the wedding business, and then I was on the road a lot doing weddings and stuff. So most of my work is up in the city, around the city, East Cork, north side, south side. So I was on the road every weekend, and then over time, I knew I wanted to make a feature film. I had kind of struggled with making short films, and that I could never figure out how to sort of make them work for an audience, because I grew up watching feature films. So I was out and about. So I knew I wanted to at some point making a feature film. So I was out and about, traveling around, and then I would see places that I liked. I'd stop the car, get my camera, film a landscape, or film a building or something, or I'd find an actor or a person that I thought was interesting. I'd get them on camera. Then I had some local lads here who were interested in being a part of a film. I said, okay, let's get you out. And then I would take them out to these locations, and bit by bit, a sort of, I wouldn't say a plot emerged, but a kind of a series of images that emerged that I would tie together then through the editing process. And a kind of an abstract film then emerged from that over 4 or 5 years. And that was a film called The Evening Redness in the South. And I shot that because I work with natural light, I shot that mainly during the summertime and the autumn time. And a lot of it was shot during the evening time with red skies and clear blue skies early in the morning. So it was, yeah, I learned a great deal from that, and then that allowed me to go into my second film. I got a little bit of funding from the Arts Council for that. I shot that.
Their project award?
It was like a small, like five grand grant for, can't even remember the name of it now, to be honest with you. And I don't think I was allowed to, I don't think I'd said in the application that I was using it for the film, but I did anyway. So, and then I went to the project award, and after that for Perennial Light. So yeah, I've just, I work without scripts. I work without rehearsal with the actors. I sort of find the movie as I go along with the actors and with the locations, and some of them really aren't even actors. There's one or two that are trained, but mainly it's people that I think have an interesting presence and an interesting vibe about them. And I say, you know what, there's something about you that we might be able to get on camera and work with. And that's how it's happened. But I haven't stopped filming for the last 10 or 15 years. I'm always out filming something, and again, I don't always have a clear idea of what I'm aiming for. I don't want to do that. I always feel that if you have too much of an idea of what the film's going to be, you're going to be possibly disappointed. I just sort of sit back, I observe, I look around, and then if something makes an impression on me, I say, look, let's go out here and let's get this on camera, and possibly something might come out of it,
Well, yeah, there's some really strong images. I think one of the scenes of fishing are very sensory and very kind of textural.
Yeah. There's a scene actually, and it's probably my favorite scene of just how my approach to making films is the scene where it's a nighttime scene, and these fishermen come in at night and they're silhouetted, and they park up the boat, and you see a seal in the water, and then you see a heron, and then you see the lads taking the fish out of the cargo out of the boat. So that scene, I knew the guy owned the boat, and he allowed me to film. He rang me there one day and he said, come down tonight at 11 o'clock onto Union Hall Pier. And I was like, oh, Union at 9 o'clock, at 11 o'clock at night, it's pitch black, it's raining. So I get down there, and there's only 2 lampposts there, really badly lit, 2 sources of light there. And I get the camera out, put it on the tripod, I get my coat, put it over the camera, I get my drone out, and I'm waiting for him to arrive. And my thought was it was going to be it's going to waste of time. But I saw the boat coming, and I could see that the boat was lit from all the lights on the boat. And I thought, great. So I knew then that every shot I would need to get would need to be lit from the lights from the boat. So I zoomed in on the camera on the boat as it came in. And then I had my wide shot of the drone, which was above my head. And I shot the scene in real time. And as I'm shooting in real time, I'm sort of piecing it together in my head. So you have the boat coming in, I have the silhouettes, that you see the lads silhouette on the boat. I have the wide shot over my head. They pull the boat up, they park it up. I still have the wide shot of the drone. I see the seal, I get him. I see the heron, I get him. Then I focus on little bits of the boat, like the bits of information on the boat. Then the lads tell me that they're going to start staking the cargo out. I then put the drone out over the water. I turn it around on the boat, and then the lights on the boat kind of, were directly gone into the lens. You get all these flares. I get the wide shot from one angle, then another, and then another. I shot that scene in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
And even I was going, wow, I got some great material here. But it happened in real time, I mean, if I was on a proper set, you'd have to, what I'm saying is I didn't get a second take, and I didn't plan anything. It just sort of unfolded. And I just had, from my experience doing weddings as well, just being able to get, you're on the move all day doing a wedding, and you're trying to get the best out of the bride and groom visually, of the locations. And I was able to apply that to that particular scene that wasn't planned to do. Then when I got there, I thought this is going to be a disaster. So it was, it just in terms of my own way I do it, it was a scene that I'm very proud of,
In terms of sort of this as a process, and I think that's very interesting the way that you're working it, kind of getting things by section and piecing them together. It's almost like a element of documentary to this.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and it's in the movie, I mean, you get that sense that there are two different styles going on with my film. So there's a documentary approach, certainly when the actors are within the frame. They're not professional actors. There's a certain vibe. They're not using techniques or theatrics to play certain scenes. Some are, some aren't. So there's a documentary element to it. And then you have these other scenes that are very stylized. But even those stylized scenes, they're real locations. There's natural light. And when those stylized scenes are really, I cut them together like montages. And then I connect that then with the more naturalistic scenes with the actors, which are very much improvised, But you're right, it's very much a documentary style approach. And actually, the reason I've done it, and I only realized this recently, that I think when I was in my 20s and when I got out of college and stuff, I met a lot of film directors, writers, and producers that were making films. But they not all of them, but there was a lot of disappointment. Films didn't work out. The director got the film taken off them by the producer. The producer was disappointed because the director was incompetent. The writer was disappointed because the director and producer ruined their film. So it was very depressing. And I was like, man, if I ever make a film, what's going to happen? So I think it's one of the reasons I was scared off going into the business. And there was always this in the back of my mind, how can I do this without being disappointed? And I think one of them was not writing a script, not thinking too much about what I want to make, or how, I never had this. I tried to stop myself from thinking, okay, I want to make a film about, some historical figure, or, a marriage breakdown, or, whatever. I just stopped doing that. And I said, let's just see if there's a way I can do this without spending any money, without, having to use, hair and makeup, costumes, or, using real locations, using real actors. And it's been very, very creatively fulfilling. And it meant that there was no disappointment, like at the end, like you're working what's available to you, actors, locations, and there's nothing to be disappointed about. Like you just, you don't have, I suppose the journey of the experience of making the film, finding the movie as you go along, is more important than the outcome of the film, and it's important that the people like the movie and all that. But I've had people say to me, like, I didn't like it, boring, or whatever else. And I mean, I don't know. It's just like, there's nothing to worry about. Who cares? I had a great time making it. It creatively was very satisfying,
And do you feel as well like what you've learned filming and putting together wedding videos has kind of helped kind of like structure those
yeah. So
connected scenes?
Yeah. So a wedding day is, the structure of the day is similar every time. You got the bride and groom in the morning. You got the guests arrive at the church. Guests exiting the church, reception, speeches, first dance. So it's structured in a way. The whole day is structured, but within that structure, it's all open to anything can happen. You have a different bride. She looks different. Some bride and grooms are in good form, others are in bad form. So there's sort of a comfort after so many years of doing it. You're sort of in the structure, and you're comfortable. You know that it'll never break. We'll never go in too many different directions. They're in the bride's getting ready in the bride's house in the morning, and you sort of learn how to move around and get angles and shots and yeah, does that make sense? And it's just very free flowing, and I think that's kind of applied to my own films in some way. I'm trying to get that across now in a proper way. How do I say that? Because the weddings have been a big thing for me. Like, I suppose knowing there's a structure of the day gives me comfort, and knowing how and a freedom as well at the same time. Yeah, that makes sense.
Talk to me about like this as a process. Are you piecing together this, if you're filming over such a long period of time, are you piecing it together in the edit as you go? Are
Yeah,
you finding little sections?
yeah.
And when does the animation come in?
Well, in Perennial Light, funny enough, we started the animation first. So we got the award, and I obviously we had a concept that gave to the Arts Council. I said it's about this kid. Something happens to him in his childhood. We follow him from birth up until adulthood, and it affects him psychologically or something along those lines. And we'd use the animation as sort of to suggest things, his thoughts and feelings, and the animation was really there that we could suggest things that you might not be able to suggest with the live action. You could do some more surreal imagery or provocative imagery and stuff. But we started with the animation first because it was January, it was wet and cold out there, and I didn't want to go out and film. I didn't, I'd have to bring, if I didn't have actors at that point. The weather wasn't good for it. So the animator just started doing it. And I said, look, I started throwing him out ideas. I said, look, I need a series of images from childhood that represent childhood, or I need a series of images from teenage years. And that's how we started. And I would just throw him ideas, drawings myself. He would take those drawings and kind of interpret them his own way. And that went on for about 4 or 5 months until like May, where I thought, man, I better start filming now, because my plan was to have it done by Christmas. And sure, that wasn't going to happen. But I thought I might have it done. So I started filming in May, and I was up in my friend's. My friend has a small farm, and I was up in their house one day, and they were having a coffee, and she just said she had two new animals in her farm. She had two donkeys, and immediately I thought, well, I've never had got donkeys on camera, sure, why not? Like, so I said, look, if you're going out anytime to feed them or look after them, let me know, and I might get some material of them with you and them. So she went out. I got some footage of her feeding the donkeys, looking after the donkeys, and I didn't think it would be part of the film. The footage was nice. It was, it looked good, and so I went home, thought about it afterwards. Said, let's go back here again. So I brought my daughter there, got her in camera feeding the donkeys. That led then to some footage with my friend and her together, planting flowers, and look, and there was a kind of a mother and daughter vibe with them. Went back, and then I cut the material, and I was cutting the material together anyway in my mind. Went back, and I thought, you know what, there's a subplot here, and we can use this. So I parked that then for a few months, and I went off then and started focusing on the little boy. I got some footage of him on the bike, and then I brought the little girl into it. I got footage of them together on the bikes, and then it just from there it just flows, and you start coming up with new ideas and new angles. Now, some rabbit holes you go down and you're stuck, you can't go back because you shot a certain amount of material, and you got to figure a way of sorting that out. So that's how it's very organic, and you work with what's available to you. I mean, when I had that footage of the donkeys, I thought it was strong material. I know nothing about donkeys, like nothing. I don't even think I'd even seen a donkey up close. But it didn't matter. The material was strong, and I thought I could use this. And so, yeah, that's what happened. That's how it started, and then just one thing led to the other. And I think then by Christmas, I only had about 20 minutes of material in the can by Christmas, and the animator had a lot of the animation done. I was like, man, I'm going to have to really up my game now going into the next year. So again, I waited till April the following year to start filming again, and it was just all going in from there, just constantly filming, constantly trying to get material, going out every second day. I work in the weddings. I do a lot of editing all the time, so trying to wait for the weather to be right. It was a long process. It was good though. It's good.
Sounds fascinating.
Mm.
And tell me then, were there any elements that you were saying you kind of would go down a rabbit hole and mightn't work? Were there any elements that after filming and feeling so good about it, and that you ultimately decided weren't part of the story, or that you had darlings that you had to kill along the way?
Mm, um, no, I think I used everything that I had no choice. Like, I had to make things work. Beggars can't be choosers. So there are things in the film that I'm not 100% sure on, but it is what it is. I couldn't go back on it. even people might say to me, well, can you do more of this and more of that? And I said, listen, getting that material is not straightforward. Like, I mean, getting those images took time,
Yeah.
and they're not done overnight. And I, there's a lot of favors from people. I filmed in people's gardens and houses and batten and fields and on the pier and everything where we live and stuff. So yeah, some things you just have to say, that's it, I can't go back on this. But you try and make it work.
Yeah.
And what I did was, and what I've always done is, because the films are kind of unconventional and kind of non-narrative and kind of experimental, I do a lot of test screenings. So I mean, I get people to, I do group test screenings. I get 10 people in to look at it, and then I get notes from them, and then I do another group and then another group, and I get other people to look at it. And normally what I do is, if someone comes back with an issue, I listen to them. And then if a second person comes back with the same issue, I sit up and really listen. And then if the third person has the same issue, then I make the change, and if something isn't working. And a lot of times it's just a small tweak, add some more footage or take something out. But no, I think I used everything in this film. But if something didn't work, I had no choice. I just had to try and make it work as best I could.
So the whole process, start to finish, how long did it take?
About 2 years. Yeah, yeah. But the first film, even Res, was 5.5 years. It's been 5.5 years. It was because I was learning and I was trying to figure out how to do it. And I mean, one of the actors was 14 when he started filming. He was 19 when I finished. And again, it was during the summertime, and some of the actors were going, "What's this guy on?" Like, I mean, every summer I'd come back, "Come on, we're going to do some more filming." And then the second film was about maybe 2.5 years. So I'm getting faster at it, getting quicker. So I'm hoping if I do another project, it will take maybe less than 2 or a year or so. Because you get confidence, I get more confident with locations.
And would you still go with the non-narrative format? Would you still kind of feel that's where your voice is, or would you be tempted to go with something, say, scripted or improv?
For now, I'll stick with the non-script. Yeah, yeah. I suppose I'll have to at some point. I don't think film boards are going to fund, my approach. I find it hard to think they're going to give you 500,000 or 1 million to go off there and spend 2 years roaming around, car filming.
It's just that you have authored works and you have your real art, and you can probably not
Yeah,
get them too often.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'd like to. I have two more projects I'd like to do. I'll try to get funding for them. I tried with one now and I didn't get it, so I'll try again with another one next year. But I'm going to stick to it. Like, I mean, I think I've improved with each film, and we've gotten better reviews for each film. We now have a small cinema release, and so why try to fix what isn't broken, and just keep pushing it, and like, I'm well aware of the films I'm making. I'm well aware the audience is small. I'm well aware even the festival circuit is hard. I mean, it's very hard to get into festivals these days. There's a lot of competition. Art films may not be as sort of popular as they once were. So I'm well aware, but I just think that I've had a good run so far, and if I just keep pushing it, I'll do two more films, and then I'll see from there. That's if I get funding, of course, and I'll see from there. Then.
And talk to me about then maybe the second part of the process. You're happy with your cut. Are you cutting to the soundtrack?
Yeah,
And you have decided on this as your kind of sequence of music, and then you're kind of placing
yeah.
things.
So I'll find tracks. I'll go through Spotify. With this film now, Perennial Light was all Spotify. Before, with the other movies, it was YouTube. I don't think I even had Spotify with the other films. But with this film, I just would go through Spotify day and night in bed and just find, you can refresh, listen to a track and refresh it. And I would find music. And I tried to find music that wasn't that well known, that wouldn't be that expensive. Or versions of songs that were written, 300 years ago, and then someone else came along and redid it. And then I would start. If it made an impression on me, obviously I'd be visualizing the images that I shot in my head and seeing what the music worked with it. And then I start cutting the images with the song. Now, in some cases, the music was too expensive, so I couldn't use it. But the music was a guide. It helped me just find the emotion of the scene. And I would test screen the music as well. Some music was over the top and pompous and didn't work. And then I'd change it or pull it back. but more or less, yeah, the music is really a huge factor in that. It helps me to sort of find the vibe of the scene and stuff. Um, so yeah, I'm working on another project actually, and I couldn't get funding for it, but I started shooting it anyway, which I probably shouldn't have done. But I'm not going to use music simply because it's too expensive. So I'm trying to find Atmos at the moment. I'm on Spotify, I'm on last night as well now, trying to find music or certain tracks that would work with the film. Or on YouTube as well, looking for stuff just to see if I can experiment with not using music, but have the same effect the other films have that have
Yeah.
music. So that's exciting. Again, you're experimenting, you're seeing what's possible. You're taking it. It's a big risk just making a film with no dialogue and no music and relying on sound. But we'll see how that goes. Yeah, yeah. But music's huge, big factor, and it's been a major problem actually because it's very expensive. So on the Evening Redness, I used very well known music, and we went on the festival circuit, and that was fine. But to stream it, I couldn't afford to use the original music. So I had to get music that was like, online, and my parents had to pay for it and help me with that. And it was expensive enough, and I wasn't very good, to be fair. Like, so the film is streaming, but it's not streaming, and it's original songs. And actually, it hurts the film because the music is kind of replacing the dialogue in a way. It's really important. And then on Where the Mirrors Roam, we had a small bit of money for that, and I used that for the festival circuit with the music. But I haven't been able to stream that because I'm not the music. The other music fine online wouldn't be as good, and the original music works really well with that film. And I'd rather it sit on my computer at home than put it out there without the original tracks. So
Yeah. And how much would it be to license them for?
you're talking 20 grand, 15, 20.
What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of money, man. Like that was a huge chunk of the budget now with the arts council. It was music rights, yeah. Oh, it's very expensive. Like you remember now, it's the music. I mean, you've seen the film. There's a lot of tracks in it. What I actually did with this one is I repeated the songs, which brought the budget down. So you've 3 tracks in the first 20 minutes. I repeated them in the second 20 minutes, and then I brought 1 or 2 more in the beginning at the last end of the film. So the music supervisor was able to. The companies were fine with that. Before, if you repeated the song, there would be an additional charge. But if I remember correctly, we didn't get a charge additionally for some of the tracks, being used twice or 3 times even. But yeah, music is an issue. Yeah,
I
but
suppose you're an artist paying for another artist for their art form.
yeah, yeah, it makes grand. Like it's
Yeah.
understandable and all that, But
But 20 grand, like I mean, a sliding scale would be
yeah,
nice.
I know, I know, I know. And then like, yeah, I know. So look, what are you going to do? Look, like I said, I'm with the new film now. I'm trying to avoid using any music. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, pure, and so the images have to be really stylized. For me, anyway, they do anyway, just to sort of even bring it to another level to suggest even more than that. When you don't have music.
And you're saying Atmos, so does that mean you have to kind of do a very textured and nuanced sound mix on top of
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
yeah, and I do all the sound mix myself and the effects and all that, and yeah, I mean, I find it all online. Like, I mean, with Perennial Light, if you notice certain scenes when they're digging, there's no sound effects. And what I did was I stylized the scene and made it kind of more of a montage, so you didn't have to put certain effects in certain areas. And in one particular scene, I think there's bells ringing as they're planting, and there's a montage, and then there's water flowing over the soundtrack as well. So it makes it more surreal, kind of like it's kind of another world. And a lot of that was to cover up the fact I couldn't put sound effects in there, because trying to recreate someone digging, you have to do that in the studio. I mean, I tried it; it's just impossible. I make it sound believable. You have to do it in a studio, and that stuff costs a fortune. So again, I'm using sound in a way that okay, there are certain scenes I can't shoot in a certain way because I don't have sound, or if I do, I have to put them into a montage with music or kind of surreal or kind of more stylized atmosphere.
Yeah. And you mentioned a festival strategy. What has been like maybe with your last 2 films, what festivals have you found really enjoyed your work? Would you go back to the same again? Like I know internationally as well is a big thing.
Yeah. So what I did was the Eden Redness screened at the Cork Film Festival, and the programmer there, Michael, was really enthusiastic about the film. It was great because I test screened the film, and the vibe wasn't great. And I was thinking, man, maybe I screwed this up. I thought it was good, and my assistant editor thought it was good, and we're big movie fans, and we thought at least there was something there. It had a certain feel or style to it. So we got into Cork. I remember at the end of the screening, you could hear a pin drop. I went up on stage and I was trying to explain myself, and a lot of my family or friends were like, what is this like? So, but the program was very enthusiastic about it. I was thrilled with the screen. I think it looked good and all that. But there was a 6 months lull there where it didn't get into any festivals. And I thought, man, that's it. Like, we're done and dusted. And then it got into one festival, a small festival in Berlin called the Berlin Revolution Film Festival.
Yeah.
And they were COVID just happened, so all their films went online.
Yeah.
And the screening they had in at that festival, I say it was like, from what I saw, it was like a small little room, probably fitted 20 or 30 people. But now that I was going to go online, it meant loads of people could see the film. And they did it really well. And they did it better than anyone at that time that I saw, because my film screened at a number of online festivals because of COVID. But they had the film screen over 2 days. They had the person introducing each film like you're doing now on the Zoom call. And then at the side of the film as it was playing, they had like a little place where everyone could write in, like a little chat room. So, and they would tell you how many people were logged in. So there was like 300 people logged into the film, because all the filmmakers that were screening it, all their family and friends were now online watching the films.
Yeah, when
And
they wouldn't necessarily maybe fly to Berlin.
nah, they wouldn't. And you'd probably have, 10 or 15 people at a low budget silent movie, set in Ireland with no dialogue. So the response was really strong from the people, didn't have to say anything. So they did, but they said very nice things. And there was a critic there from America, online critic, that watched it, and he sent me an email saying, can I review your film? And I was like, just as long as you give me a good review, I don't mind, So he reviewed it, gave it a great review. And then one of the programmers at the festival said, can I screen your film at some festival? And I think it was in Serbia or something. And I was like, yeah, no hassle. And it was, again, a small festival. So then I thought, okay, the guy at the London or Cork liked the film. I liked the film. My assistant editor likes the film. This programmer, like this critic liked it. Is there any way I can find similar people that will like my film? So I went online, went on Film Freeway, started looking for experimental film festivals. And around that time, there was these, now I don't think they're as popular anymore, I think other film festivals have kind of complained about, but there was these monthly film competitions that were online, and you could send your film in, and you could win an award, or you could win best film of the month. And because my film was experimental, I thought, well, how many films are going to get entered into these? How many experimental films are going to get entered into each month? Some were in Italy, some were in America. So I started sending it in, and I started winning. So now I was winning awards over the next 3 or 4 months, best experimental. And I focused on the experimental and cinematography categories because I thought they were the strongest. And then I started sending out to online film critics. I found ones that I checked their reviews, and I was able to see what kind of movies they liked, if they were sympathetic towards these kind of movies. And then I started getting good
God,
reviews.
that's great strategy. Like, that's very clever.
And then by the end of the year, we had like 20 awards with 5-star reviews. And I remember, because there were 6 months not getting into festivals. And at the end of the year, we screened at one festival. I won't say the name of it now. And it was a good festival. And there were 7 films, I think. We were one of them. We were in amongst these films that were, big stars in them. They were getting, released in cinemas. And there was our small little film with, a non-narrative silent movie with a bunch of local lads from Cork, And I think that those awards and those reviews helped get into that festival. And I remember at the end, someone said to me, it was like, you know what, you think that was a fluke? And I said, well, I don't know, but I'm going to try it on my next movie, Where the Mayor is Rome. And I had the same approach. The interesting thing about that with that film was that I assumed that the festivals that took the last film, they would take this film. They thought, well, he's moved on to a new project, but they didn't. Some of them said, look, we prefer the other one. It doesn't work for us. So I thought, geez, okay. So I had to find other festivals. But we had a great run with that. We got 15 awards. We got better online reviews.
Yeah, that sounds like an expensive submission process.
It was expensive, yeah, it was, but it was worth it. It was worth it big time. It was worth it. And I took my, like, the monthly film competitions at the time were actually quite cheap. So, and I was very careful. So, like, you had ones, you had four of them in Italy, and I think they were connected, or one of them were the ones in America. So I would send it into the Italy one, then we would get an award, and I would wait to send it into the same partner in America, and then we get another award. So I didn't send them all at the same time. It was kind of a strategy where I thought possibly if they gave it 1 month in one country, they might do another month in another, and they did. I mean, it just sort of, it was like it was a domino effect, and it worked out. And we did really well on the indie circuit with both films, and then that allowed me to, I went to the Arts Council with both those films and with an application, and I did all that, and we got the award then for Perennial Light, which actually was a kind of a surprise. I didn't expect, not that I just didn't expect to get it. We did it, and I didn't think much about it afterwards. I just thought it's very hard. Those applications are very hard. It's not easy to get an award there, and a lot of competition. They're very strict, and rightly so. So we got it, and it just kind of came out of the blue. So, oh Jesus, okay, we better get cracking on this. So yeah.
That's so exciting. And in terms of what you learned on this film that you'll bring forward to the other one, is it just known, look, you have your strategy, you have your techniques, you have your voice established, and now it's about honing, or is there anything that you'd like to explore for the next project?
There are a lot of montages in the film. It's a challenging film, it's got a linear structure, but it is quite vague, and I did kind of went all out in trying to be different, and there's a lot of montages, and no, I hope that works for the audience, that it's not a film that's supposed to be understood literally from point A to point B. It's more of a feeling that I'm chasing, a vibe that I'm chasing, and you've different section of the guy's life. But I think on the next film I might tone that down a little bit. I've already started working on it. Buddy and mine, we're just filming it. Again, we're just filming it locally on beaches on Sherkin Island and Inchydonny Beach and a few other places down in Glengariff. It's actually just one character really for the whole film so far, anyway. But I'm putting back on it a little bit in terms of being too sort of, I want to say vague. It's still vague because I screened some with the people recently and said, Colin, this is as vague as Perennial Light, but certainly just toning down some of the montages and some of the cuts. And again, it's from one point of view. So I think the film will be a little bit even more linear and more straightforward than my previous films. But I think, you got to find a balance. I mean, I'm not working towards a large audience, but I would love to be able to find a balance with at least one of my films between making something artistic and something that's accessible to an audience, that would be good. And I think that would work for future funding. I think it would work anyway, that people want, well, he did well with this film, or people went to see this film, so possibly they'll go see his next film.
Very
And
interesting.
yeah.
And in terms of what would you want your audience, if they're watching this for the release, to take away?
Jesus, I never thought about that. Life is complicated. Men are complicated. Boys are complicated. There was we screened it at Dublin Film Festival, and we got some really strong online reviews. But there was one thing that was mentioned from a film student, a UCC student. It came out, well, I found it online only a few months ago, and she just wrote a small little piece on it. But she said something on the end where she nailed. She said something along these lines anyway. She said, it's about trauma, and it's about boys trying to get through it and get over it and deal with all that. But she said it's also about the importance of women in the development of young men and boys. And I think I was like, and again, because I don't write scripts, and I don't overanalyze things. I go, oh my God, and she nailed it on the head, because it is about that. I think the little boy at the beginning of the film, you never see him with anyone else except her, and she makes an impression on him where she's nurturing something in him. You see her with her mum, or with, looking after the animals, planting flowers. There's a nurturing element to both of them, and he's attracted to that. And there's something off about the kid. It's sort of the vibe suggested there. So when she disappears from the story, she dies, there's nothing to nurture that and to look after that. And of course, this kind of alpha male kind of emerges, and he goes down a difficult path then. And then, we see him as a teenager, we see him with this other girl, and he rejects her. And then we see him as an adult with his kids and his wife, and obviously the trauma from childhood, and she helps him through that. So I think it's something that was present. It was there as I was making it, but again, I don't tend to challenge or overthink things or second guess myself, I went with it. But she articulated, you know, just a couple of lines, and no one had said that to me before, and I think she nailed it, you know. So I don't know if they can take stuff like that from it, that would be great, you know.
Brilliant. Oh, great. And where are you screening? So you've a release on the 29th.
So we're at the Arc in Cork, and we're at the Omniplex in Cork, and I think the Odeon in Dublin. And I don't know yet. I think it's yet to confirm. I think the Stella might take it too.
Brilliant.
And then we'll see from there. But I'm thrilled. I'm just so happy that it's getting into a cinema. It's just great. It's they're going to, it's a nice feeling, you know, just to have it in cinema. I've been at this now for 20 years shooting low budget films, and it's been a long journey. And it's just, even if it's only a small release and we got it for a week, happy days, man. I couldn't be happier, you know.
Congratulations. And thanks so much for chatting with us.
Thank you so much, Gemma. Have a good one. Take care.
And thank you so much for listening. And make sure to never miss another podcast and subscribe to our newsletter on filmireland.ie.